The year Zhou Tingyun picked me up and took me home, he was 15, and I was 8. To be strict, it wasn't really him picking me up. I was the one stubbornly clinging to him. A month later, he finally lost patience and took me home. For over a decade, we relied on each other for survival. Then he was spotted by an agent and is now a hot name in the entertainment industry. Everyone knows the famous Zhou Tingyun. His acting isn't great, but his looks make up for it. His singing isn't impressive either, yet his fans praise him to the skies. He barely speaks on variety shows, but people say they're charmed by his unruly personality. And just when his rumored romance with a certain trending female idol was heating up, causing a colorful uproar online, I skipped 2 days of classes to go confront him. Zhou Tingyun is too popular, and it has everything to do with that face of his. I still remember how I felt inside when I first saw him, cold and hungry, huddled in a corner. Zhou Tingyun, in a crisp white t-shirt and light jeans, sauntered over slowly. I thought I was the little match girl, seeing an angel. But an angel doesn't have a temper as nasty as Zhou Tingyun's. After running away from the orphanage, I don't know how long I walked, how many places I drifted through, how many malicious glances I avoided. Holding my skinny little yellow cat, I hid in a damp corner of a wall. The third time I saw Zhou Tingyun walk past me, I started silently following him. Zhou Tingyun didn't have an ounce of sympathy. For 2 weeks, he acted as if I didn't exist. He ate at a noodle shop. I watched eagerly from the side, swallowing my saliva. Zhou Tingyun rubbed his disposable chopsticks, crossed his legs, and ate strand by strand, counting them. In the end, the shop owner couldn't bear it and served me a bowl. I'd only taken 2 bites when Zhou Tingyun got up to leave. I hurriedly swallowed half the bowl in 2 mouthfuls and ran after him. In the crisscrossing alleys, from a concrete balcony above, someone had just done laundry, and water dripped down with a patter. Zhou Tingyun turned to look at me. "Why are you following me?" "I don't collect scrap. I don't even know how I managed to grow up that much." My earliest memory was facing the plump matron at the orphanage. I didn't learn anything, had to endure hunger every day, and got locked in the toilet, so I couldn't even speak properly. I vaguely understood what he meant and just stared at him intently. The cat in my arms meowed and licked a small piece of noodle from the corner of its mouth. I found it in the fields next to the orphanage, kept it in a cardboard box in an abandoned toilet. When I ran away, I didn't forget it. It was all I had. Zhou Tingyun frowned. "Speak." I was sensitive to frowning. Whenever the matron at the orphanage frowned, it meant I was going to be locked in the dark room or beaten. But Zhou Tingyun still looked good even when frowning. I wasn't afraid of him. That day ended with him turning to leave and me trotting after him. I found a little spot near where he always passed by. And every day when I saw him, I'd start following him. In the evening, I'd watch him go home. I kept this up for who knows how long, but I always felt it was better than drifting around or living in the orphanage. The day Zhou Tingyun took me home was a rainy night. As usual, I held my cat, leaning my head against a blue rolling shutter door, curled into a small ball, resisting the crackling wind and rain. I thought I'd drift off again like that, waking up to sunlight. Then I saw someone in the distance walking toward me holding a big black umbrella. I was a bit scared, pushed myself up from the ground with my hands, ready to run, but the person grabbed the back of my collar. Running where? It was Zhou Tingyun. His voice was still clear through the pouring rain. He took me home, but there was only him there. A 2-bedroom flat, not many things, very tidy and clean. On the east side of the living room were 2 black and white photos of a middle-aged man and woman. Zhou Tingyun came out of the room with a large towel and clothes in his hands. Seeing me looking at the photos, he put the things on the sofa. "Put your cat down and go take a shower." Zhou Tingyun's offline event in Shanghai ended late today. I got the address and details from his assistant, Kini. After getting off the plane and rushing over, I hugged my backpack and squatted by the back door of the studio, the place he'd have to pass when leaving. Habits formed in childhood still show traces now. I always sleep curled up, eat quickly, need to hold something in my hands, and when waiting for Zhou Tingyun, I tend to squat. Connected to the internet, I browse new photos and videos of Zhou Tingyun from different angles posted by fans on apps. He still rarely smiles. Through several layers of doors, the noise from over there faintly drifted over. By the time my feet were almost numb, I finally felt the movement of the door handle behind me being pressed down. With my backpack on, I stood up and saw Zhou Tingyun, surrounded by several people, putting on a face mask. When he saw me, he paused for a moment, then his handsome brows furrowed. His eyebrows were nicely shaped, but his eyes showed obvious fatigue. I'm not afraid of him. Never have been. There might still be fans around here, so I didn't get too close, even though I really wanted to go grab him. Today is Wednesday. Indeed, I nodded. Keeney smiled and guided Zhou Tingyun forward. I followed slightly behind and to his left. His voice came through the mask. You're not at school. What are you doing here? I missed you, I said quietly, stepping in his footprints. But the surrounding tall security guards in black made quite a bit of noise with their clothing as they moved. I wasn't sure if Zhou Tingyun heard me clearly. We got into the black car parked by the roadside. Zhou Tingyun took off his mask and sat in the back, watching me sit next to him. University doesn't allow skipping classes either, he said. But I haven't seen you in 2 months. You can search online. I'm everywhere. Your task now is to study hard. That's not the same. It is. It's not. He stopped responding. Keeney, book her a return ticket for tomorrow morning. Take her to the airport then, and book a room too. Zhou Tingyun leaned back against the seat, his black hair rubbing against the leather headrest. It looked soft and smooth. I reached out and touched it. Zhou Tingyun glanced at me but didn't respond, closing his eyes to rest. I tried to reason with him. Zhou Tingyun, tomorrow is Thursday. I only have 2 classes on Thursday, none on Friday, and then the weekend. Can I go back next week? He didn't speak. He still wore light makeup, his eyelashes covering his lower eyelids, some eyeshadow on his lids. I nudged his arm. Can I? Zhou Tingyun? Zhou Tingyun's parents died in a car accident. I didn't really understand at first. How could those boxy little cars on wheels hurt, or even kill people? But Zhou Tingyun really isn't a good guardian. Many things he only explains once or not at all. I couldn't speak clearly, so he bought a bunch of beginner toddler language DVDs and played them on the TV from morning till night. I ate too fast and anxiously. He only tapped the edge of my bowl once and then ignored it. I lived to 7 or 8 years old, knowing only how to run and nothing else. One day, Zhou Tingyun stayed in his study for a long time, pulled out a stack of books and plopped them in front of me, telling me to teach myself. The cartoon teacher with glasses on the cover, and I stared at each other for ages, but nothing came of it. Later, when I finally learned to read and looked back at those books, I realized they were all Zhou Tingyun's 5th and 6th grade maths, science, and English textbooks. He asked me how old I was. I pulled out my birth certificate for him to see. I didn't know the words on it, but I knew it was important. The matron always smiled and handed such certificates to the occasionally visiting, lavishly dressed wealthy people. Once, I deliberately caused trouble and stole all the certificates from the cabinet. After I was dragged back and beaten, an older girl at the orphanage secretly slipped this one under my pillow. I gave it to Zhou Tingyun. Near the end of summer break, Zhou Tingyun took me to take several photos, then took me out a few times. After leaving me at home for a few days, he came back and threw a fitted light white outfit and a blue backpack at me. Told me to go to school. School, a fresh word. He took me inside the moving iron gates. Outside, there was an elderly man in a dark blue uniform. Around us, children were crying, similar to what I'd heard at the orphanage, but without the same desperation and pain. I tugged at his sleeve, looking at him. I was afraid he'd abandon me. What are you doing? Don't go to school and become useless. I suppose I was clever. After over 2 months of cramming from various discs and cartoons, I could understand most of what Zhou Tingyun said. But I couldn't read or speak well. Zhou Tingyun grew impatient and progress was slow. You don't want me. I pointed at myself. What don't want you? There are teachers here who'll teach you to read, study, and gain knowledge. You can also make good friends and blend in with normal children. Teacher was a sensitive word. I thought of the matron at the orphanage. I pulled up my sleeve to show him the crisscrossing light brown scars that had become part of my body, lingering for so long. He patted my head. Last night, he demercifully washed and dried my hair, because I always made a mess of it with soap or laundry detergent. The braid was also his doing too loose, and with his pat, it came undone. He crouched down, looking up at me. No one here will hit you. If they do, tell me. Be good. Listen carefully in class. I'll pick you up at 5 in the afternoon. He pointed at the digital watch on my wrist. The kitten, ... double quotes. He grew impatient again. You'll see it when we go home tonight. A long time later, when I entered the high school Zhou Tingyun had attended, by which time he was already making a name for himself in the entertainment industry, I learned that he hardly attended any evening self-study sessions during his first and second years of high school. He wasted that time picking me up from school and making me perfunctory but never repeating dinners. In the end, I stayed until the weekend. Zhou Tingyun had specifically taken a few days off from filming to attend events and shoot ads. According to Keeney, his meal times were scheduled to the minute. I carried Zhou Tingyun's personal items and acted as his assistant for a day. Zhou Tingyun didn't talk to me the whole time, nor did he have time to. On the way to the next event location, I sat next to him and handed him a mask, eye mask, and earplugs so he could rest briefly. Zhou Tingyun didn't take them. He looked at me for a while, then reached out and wiped a drop of sweat from my temple. Not studying properly at school, running here to do odd jobs for me. What were you thinking? His voice was a bit dry. To maintain his condition and save time, he hadn't had a sip of water for hours. I handed him his water bottle. You haven't been home in 2 months. I just missed you, wanted to see you. I can study the school material on my own. These 2 teachers don't take attendance. A student's duty is to study hard. Since when did you learn to cut corners? Before I could respond, he put on the eye mask and continued. No next time. What about summer break? Can I come find you then? There's no homework during university summer break. He leaned back in his seat, putting in the noise-cancelling earplugs. A perfectly good holiday, and you want to come bake under the sun? I grabbed his arm. He didn't pull away, but he stopped talking. Keeney, sitting in front, turned around and gestured to me, indicating to let him sleep. I tilted my head and gently leaned my face against Zhou Tingyun's shoulder. He smelled of a faint mix of makeup and fragrance, but after a while, those surface scents faded, and the underlying, subtle lemon scent he always carried emerged. I remember the first time I used lemon-scented body wash. By then, I was in 3rd grade. Zhou Tingyun had changed the toiletries at home. I was delighted by the scent of the lemon body wash, and ran out holding the plastic bottle, extending it toward him. So fragrant, it smells really good. Back then, Zhou Tingyun was in his final year of high school, but I was completely unaware, because he still picked me up from school on time every day. A gentle fire simmered in the kitchen, stewing soup, with the steady sound of steam drifting over. Zhou Tingyun twirled a pen while looking at test papers on the table. Hearing me, he casually pointed to the washing-up liquid in the kitchen. Go see if it smells like that. I ran over and opened the washing-up liquid. At first sniff, it was somewhat similar, but then completely different, one mild, one sharp, one lightly lasting, one intense and short-lived. I rested my chin on his desk, looking sideways at him writing, and pointed at a few characters. 5, 9, of water, ... double quotes, showing him the characters I knew. He moved his hand and tapped my forehead with the pen. Go do your homework. The year Zhou Tingyun became famous. As winter break approached, I came home from school to find a crowd blocking our doorway. All those relatives of Zhou Tingyun, who hadn't appeared in so many years, had shown up. Zhou Tingyun never talked to me about these things. I had no concrete understanding of extended family or relatives. I thought he was like me, just with a mum and dad. But he also had grandparents, uncles, aunts, and their spouses. Fumbling for my keys in my bag, I hesitated at the door. A woman's voice from the crowd pointed at me. That's her. The stray girl your nephew is raising. I was a bit confused about the situation. My first reaction was to quickly run back downstairs and call Zhou Tingyun. Zhou Tingyun soon sent someone to pick me up. That New Year I celebrated for the first time with more than just him and me. Zhou Tingyun took me to his grandfather's house. A table full of people stared at us. I tightened my grip on Zhou Tingyun's hand. He led me to sit at the table, but didn't pass me chopsticks or a bowl. I understood this meant he didn't intend to eat there. I placed my hands on my knees, slightly bowing my head, avoiding meeting their gazes. Around the table, Zhou Tingyun only addressed the two elderly people at the head. Grandfather, grandmother. Then he placed the gift boxes he was carrying to the side. Little Ting, you've really hit it big this year. I hear celebrities make loads of money. I wonder if we aunties and uncles-in-law will get to benefit. But your grandparents are sitting right here. That's right. Back then, we were the ones who helped get that girl's household registration sorted. The connections we used, the meals we hosted, your eldest uncle never mentioned any of that effort to you. Look at you now, living in a big house, wearing name brands. Even this girl gets to live the good life with you. But your own cousins are just getting by with scraps. A stray you pick up from outside won't ever be loyal. They're wild at heart, after all. Little Ting, you can't lose your head. When your parents passed, we uncles helped you a lot back then. Family is family. Call him brother, you lot. You can call an outsider that. Have you no sense? Several voices chimed in with calls of brother, mixed with the clamour from the whole table. I glanced sideways at Zhou Tingyun. He had just graduated from university that summer, only 21, still too young. But he sat there quietly, leaning slightly against the chair back, expressionless, only occasionally frowning slightly. No trace of a youth remained, only a heavy stillness. Zhou Tingyun waited quietly for them to finish. When silence fell in the room, he finally spoke slowly. Uncle, just now when I came up, I saw my parents' car still parked downstairs at your place. You took the car when you helped Xiao Yu with her registration. It wasn't a bad deal for you, was it? The year my parents died, I remember everyone here avoiding me. But when the court ruling came down, everyone was very interested in the compensation. Things didn't work out, which is why we haven't seen each other all these years, right? The corner of Zhou Tingyun's mouth lifted in a cold, slight curve. Grandfather and grandmother are my elders. I should honor them and provide for them on behalf of my parents. If needed, you can go directly to the NC nursing home outside the city. I've already reserved spots. I will also visit often and arrange regular health checkups for them. But my aunts and uncles and I can hardly be considered family. Coming here now to talk about family harmony is far-fetched and unseemly. My only family is Siwiyu. I raised her. Since she's the wild one, in your words, then so am I. Besides, I don't even know these people calling me brother, nor do I have any interest in being one. To me, they are the real outsiders. We've paid our New Year respects. Zhou Tingyun pulled me up, took my school bag containing 3 red envelopes. He gave 2 to his grandparents and the last one to a slightly older boy. We have other matters, so we won't disturb you further. Well, the big star is famous now, isn't he? So impressive. Do your fans know what you're really like? Is this how you speak to your elders? Huh? With no parents around, we failed to teach you properly. Second uncle smashed something, his voice booming. Zhou Tingyun glanced back calmly from the doorway, his voice still even. If you really want to make a scene, then contact my lawyer. Zhou Tingyun placed a business card on the shoe cabinet. It's not like you haven't been to court before. After that, I never saw that group of people again. Zhou Tingyun moved to a different place, and his studio gradually took shape. But every new year it was still just the 2 of us. Sometimes at home, sometimes in the city where he was working. It was past midnight by the time we got back to the hotel. Zhou Tingyun's assistant bought midnight snacks for the crew. I took 2 boxes of wonton soup and knocked on his door. He had just showered, his hair damp, a few strands falling over his forehead. As soon as he opened the door, I was enveloped by the light, clean scent of steam from his shower. Not asleep yet. He held the door, not moving aside. I waved the food containers in my hand. He stepped aside. I slipped in and sat on the sofa in the living room, opening the containers and arranging them on the coffee table. Come eat. You only had a few pieces of apple tonight. Zhou Tingyun stood leaning against the doorway to the foyer, a black towel in his hand blending with his dark hair. Silent. What's wrong? Come eat, then get some sleep. He shuffled over in the hotel-provided disposable slippers, reached out and patted my head, then sat down on the sofa, picking up the chopsticks I had separated. His fingers, slightly pale from being in water, held them. I propped my chin on my hand, watching him eat. He suddenly pinched my wrist. Tattoo? His thumb was right over a black design, a simple arched bridge in black. I wasn't afraid of Zhou Tingyun because, even though he often seemed impatient with me, he had never truly lost his temper with me. So I nodded and turned my wrist to show him. Is it nice? Tattoos can last a long time. His thumb rubbed over it gently. Who did you go with? By myself. Haven't you made friends at school? I have. You should spend more time with people your own age. You're an adult at 18. Why always stick with me? He let go of my hand, slowly stirring the soup in the container with his chopsticks. I leaned forward, folding my arms on my knees, tilting my head to look at him. But I really haven't seen you in so long. I really missed you. At school, I listen. I make friends. I go to class. I join activities. Zhou Tingyun, are you going to start dating? He raised an eyebrow in surprise, glancing at me sidelong. Before he could speak, the door was swiped open. Keeney came in, carrying a dark green textured paper box. He brought it over to us. Inside were 2 bottles of wine. Deep brown liquid, the bottles wrapped with wide bands of ornate brand lettering. Song Ting heard you were at this hotel, and had her assistant send over a little gift. Zhao Josie, should I handle the return gift on your behalf? Or how would you like to handle it? Zhou Tingyun completely put down his chopsticks, resting an elbow on the sofa and propping his cheek on his hand. He rubbed his eyes with the fingers of his other hand. You handle the return. Don't give out the room number. If she wants to meet, find an excuse to decline. Keeney gave an okay sign with his hand. Placed the gift box on a high cabinet in the foyer, then took out a tablet to go over the next day's work schedule with Zhou Tingyun before preparing to leave. Zhou Tingyun nudged my calf with his foot. Go to sleep. I looked at him without speaking. His eyes were a bit red from rubbing. What now? I'm going back tomorrow. He nodded. Go back and study properly. Don't keep thinking about irrelevant things. You're still a student. Contact me if anything comes up. I want to sleep with you tonight. He glanced at me. How old are you? But I don't feel like I've grown up yet. He let out a short laugh and pulled me up by the hand. Don't even think about it, Zhou Yu. You're an independent adult now. You can't rely on me forever. Time to wean off. After running away from the welfare institution, I had nightmares for a very long time. I was too young then, didn't really understand things. I just knew that as soon as I closed my eyes, I'd be surrounded by a group of plump, fierce-looking female staff. In my dreams, I was always running, trying every way to escape that place shrouded in dark mist. But the building was too big. There were too many staff, and no matter how I ran, I couldn't get out. People would always emerge from corners to catch me. Waking up alone to a pitch-black room. The terror in that moment was even worse than in the dream. Zhou Tingyun was the only person I could rely on in my whole life up to that point. So one midnight, waking from a nightmare where hands were pulling at my arms and legs, I picked up my cat and ran to Zhou Tingyun's room. The cat instinctively burrowed into his arms, waking him up. Zhou Tingyun reached over and turned on the bedside lamp, the light making him squint for a moment. What's wrong now? I'm scared. Scared of what? Go to sleep. He became a bit more awake, looking up at me. Bad dream? I didn't speak. Standing by the bed was cold. I lifted a corner of his duvet and crawled in. He was probably exhausted. He absently tugged the duvet over me and put the cat off the bed. No kicking the covers. No cats on the bed. Then he fell back asleep. The bed was big. There was enough space between us for 3 cats. I found his hand under the covers and held it. His hand was warm. I rubbed his smooth fingernails and gradually soothed myself back to sleep. After that night, I said I wanted to sleep with him. He wouldn't allow it. But every night when I woke from a nightmare, I would still go to his room. Eventually, I don't know when it started, but my dreams began to fill with test papers, the school flower beds, the little black and white stray dog downstairs, steaming hot meals, and Zhou Tingyun, slowly replacing those oppressive scenes of being chased and locked away. But I never told Zhou Tingyun that I still wanted to hold his hand to sleep. By his side, those nightmares seemed to avoid me automatically. Zhou Tingyun named me Zhou Yu, Night Rain, because he brought me home on a rainy night. But I always wrote the character for the split apart, all crooked and tilted. He taught me once. I practiced all afternoon and finally avoided the fate of being renamed Zhou Yu. Still, He more often called me Zhou Yu or Xiao Yu. I asked him why he didn't use my full name. He said it was troublesome, awkward to say. When I started secondary school, Zhou Tingyun suddenly got the idea that my name had bad connotations and wanted to change it again. But I didn't want to change. I said I liked my name. I held onto his sleeve, not letting go. Zhou Tingyun. I'm being so obedient. I wanted to use this to negotiate. His dressing gown was pulled slightly askew by my tugging, revealing a small red mole on his right collarbone. He reached up to adjust it. Zhou Yu, you've grown up. I'm a man, you're a woman. Men and women are different. We can't sleep together anymore. No, I said, lowering my head. In the darkness, I turned on my side. My hand searched under the covers until it found Zhou Tingyun's hand, my fingers tracing the knuckles of his. He didn't move, didn't pull away. The hotel bed was large, especially since Zhou Tingyun had booked the best suite. The duvet was soft. The curtains weren't fully drawn, leaving a gap. The full moon seemed right outside the window, glowing and gentle. Tomorrow I would have to part with Zhou Tingyun again. I wasn't sleepy. I asked softly, Zhou Tingyun, are you going to date Song Ting? I just said, don't think about irrelevant things. What's in your head? His voice was also very soft, low in the deep night, softened by the moonlight, sounding indistinct. But will you? Song Ting was the current female idol he was rumored with online, who had emerged strongly from a talent show a couple of years ago. No. Are you lying to me? I saw the news online. He paused before continuing. Song Ting's father was my boss when I debuted. He helped me a lot. When Song Ting entered the industry, he asked me to look out for her more. Then he added quietly, I didn't expect their team to handle this, looking out this way behind our backs. It won't happen again. Why not again? He seemed to smile faintly, lifting his other hand to pat my head. To lead by example. Be a good guardian. Zhou Tingyun, will you get married in the future? Can I still be with you after you're married? You have so many questions. I just have a lot of questions. All right, go to sleep. But you haven't answered my question yet. I'm tired. Okay. He finally added one last thing, his voice very soft. His hand under the covers squeezed my wrist, right over the tattoo it seemed. Don't worry. I raised you all this way. I won't abandon you. Don't think about these things anymore. I shuffled closer, resting my head against his shoulder, and closed my eyes. The blazing sun scorched the earth. The asphalt seemed to be melting. A red McLaren stood parked on the track. Zhou Tingyun was by the car, talking to the director. It was summer break, the golden period for filming and airing TV dramas. Zhou Tingyun's new project was about the coming-of-age story of a rebellious, arrogant runaway racing driver. For this, he had even dyed his hair, sporting a head of striking blue, wearing oddly shaped earrings. Quite a difference from his usual image. But he was still Zhou Tingyun. Actually, many fans, directors, and industry professionals online praised Zhou Tingyun for his good acting and natural talent. I don't think so. In my eyes, no matter what role he plays, he's Zhou Tingyun. The spirited young general is him. The refined, gentle professor is him. The slovenly street thug is him. The profound, reserved strategist is still him. Every character he portrays has different life backgrounds, vastly different personalities, even clothing styles that can't be compared. But they are all Zhou Tingyun, the one and only Zhou Tingyun. I sat in the stands, chin in hand. The seats nearby, even with sunshades, felt scorching hot to the touch. Actually, filming for this drama hadn't officially started yet. They were in early preparation stages. Zhou Tingyun had already adopted his character's look and was practicing with the racing car. Keeney told me privately that the racing scenes could use professional drivers, and for many close-up shots inside the car, a high skill level wasn't needed. But Zhou Tingyun came early to practice anyway. Zhao Zhouze is handsome, acts well, is serious, diligent and humble. That's why so many big directors send him scripts, were Keeney's exact words. The ground in the venue seemed to be steaming from the heat. A crew member held an umbrella for Zhou Tingyun, but a small umbrella couldn't block out the high temperature. I thought he was so hardworking. When my university entrance exam results came out, I took several selective majors to Zhou Tingyun for the final decision. He was quite pleased. Out of the 3 choices, he picked finance for me. He said such a university and major would never go out of style, and told me to study hard. In the future, he'd hand our family's finances over to me to manage. If I managed them well, he could retire 10 years early. At that time, he had managed to take 2 full weeks off and took me abroad to escape the summer heat. The top floor of the rented house had a glass roof, and the outside balcony was filled with flowers. Zhou Tingyun was uncharacteristically relaxed, wearing light grey long-sleeved pajamas, barefoot, lying on a lounger with his elbows behind his head, watching the sky full of low-hanging stars with me. A small side table held a few plates of freshly cut seasonal fruit. I skewered a piece of mango and handed it to Zhou Tingyun. "Finally raised you all the way," he said with a smile. I sat up, propping my chin on my hand to look at him. Moonlight spilled over him, as if coating him in a soft, lustrous glow. "Zhou Tingyun, thank you. If it weren't for you, I don't know what situation I'd be in now. I might have already—" He turned his head to glance at me, interrupting. "What's happened is what's happened. There's no might have been. Don't think about these things anymore in the future." I leaned over, resting my chin on the arm of his chair, looking at him sideways. His eyes held little points of starlight, even more beautiful than an angel's. "Daydreaming again?" He reached out and touched the top of my head. I shook my head. "No, I'm not. Zhou Tingyun, can I continue living at home during university? You don't want to live on campus?" He looked down at me. "Zhou, university is a new chapter in your life. You won't see your university classmates every day like in high school. Integrating into your class, and with your peers, starts with integrating into a dormitory. Don't always shut yourself away alone. Make more friends. Interact with all sorts of different people. These are precious years. Don't waste them. Home will always be there. You can go back whenever you want. You know, I travel a lot for work. If you commute back and forth every day and are alone at home, I'd worry. Live on campus. You can go home often. Spend more time with people your own age, okay?" After filming officially started, Zhou Tingyun wasn't as busy running around to events as before. But every day on set costs real money. Their shooting schedule was packed morning, afternoon, evening. The director utilized every minute to the extreme, but on the other hand, was also extremely strict. In the early part, the rebellious rich boy Zhou Tingyun played had a few scenes of getting drunk and flirting with girls in a bar. When they got to filming these, it was quite dramatic. Song Ting came to visit the set, making a big show of it. The mobile cold drink carts she brought were wheeled to every corner of the set. Everyone present was in the industry, and had heard the rumors about Song Ting and Zhou Tingyun. The director seemed displeased but didn't show it outright. He only scolded the assistant when they brought him a drink. It was a closed set, but it couldn't keep Song Ting out. But the impact she brought was far more than that. The actresses playing opposite Zhou Tingyun were newcomers. They were already nervous about having to act flirtatious scenes with him. With Song Ting there, her perfectly made-up large eyes quietly watching from behind the monitor, those girls became unbearably stiff, not knowing where to put their hands and feet. They had been getting better over the first 2 takes, but here it was completely reset. Zhou Tingyun had gotten up at 5 a.m. to start shooting. By 11 a.m., aside from changing locations a few times, he hadn't rested much. The director vented his anger on the young actresses again. I wanted to go over and hand Zhou Tingyun a bottle of water. He looked tired around the eyes. But Song Ting beat me to it, walking over to Zhou Tingyun's side. I watched from across the crowd as they walked out of the bar's main hall and into a side corridor leading to private rooms. Both had beautiful, refined features. Standing together under the bar's dazzling, shifting lights, they did look well matched. But I felt extremely uncomfortable. In the past, Zhou Tingyun had acted alongside beautiful actresses, had collaborations and shoots, but I'd never felt this way before. It was as if millions of ants were crawling densely over my heart. Reaching to scratch, it didn't reach the root of the itch. Zhou Tingyun reappeared in the bar hall after only 7 minutes, 413 seconds. The director didn't seem to have calmed down yet, watching the earlier takes with a dark expression. The assistant director was trying to smooth things over nearby. Two of the actresses had red-rimmed eyes. I could see it clearly even from a distance. 7 minutes, a very short time. In school, a 10-minute break wasn't even enough for the girls to go to the toilet together. Yet to me, these 7 minutes felt endlessly long. A person can speak about 200 words per minute on average. 7 minutes is 1,400 words. What were they saying? Did they need to say that much? Xiao Yu, come eat something first. Zhao Zhou and the others still have a while. When Director Wu gets angry, no one gets to eat. Keeney hurried over carrying 2 takeout boxes plus a bottle of juice and milk, his words spilling out like beans from a bag. I was sitting on a bench. He put the things down beside me. Eat first before it gets cold, he said before quickly blending back into the crowd over there. I didn't even get a chance to say anything. Zhou Tingyun had already returned to the bar counter. He was holding a printed and stapled script, tilting his head to talk to the actresses. And Song Ting. I looked around but didn't see her. I didn't open the food containers. Zhou Tingyun was still hungry. I wanted to wait with him, share his feelings, hurt with his hurts. Perhaps the assistant director's smoothing efforts worked. Or maybe because Song Ting was no longer behind the monitor, this take went smoothly. Zhou Tingyun wore a black shirt, but the top few buttons were undone. His blue hair looked mysterious and romantic under the dazzling lights. Leaning casually against the bar, drinking a cross-cup toast with one of the girls, that raised eyebrow made him look both flippant and unrestrained. Very different from his usual self. The girl opposite him didn't need any extra blush on her cheeks. A perfume scent drifted into my nose. Someone sat down on the bench next to me. I turned to look. It was Song Ting, whom I hadn't found earlier. I didn't like Song Ting. She was beautiful, came from a good family, danced beautifully, sang well, but I still couldn't bring myself to like her. My elbows on my knees, propping up my face, I knew I was being strange now. But when she appeared beside Zhou Tingyun as his complete, taken for granted, ambiguously rumored romantic interest, it was the first time I felt such clear negative emotions towards a person. I seemed unable to control this burgeoning feeling. Perhaps Zhou Tingyun was right. I couldn't always stay this close to him. Hey, you're a Ting's little sister? Little sister? I didn't know either. I never called Zhou Tingyun brother, let alone uncle. The first time I addressed him, I used his full name directly. Zhou Tingyun. I suppose so. But Zhou Tingyun occasionally positioned himself as my guardian. He wasn't that much older than me, so brother was more fitting. Oh, has your brother had a girlfriend before? This question I wasn't entirely sure either. Before he entered the industry, I could see him often. But after he entered, he was always out of town. Always running to events, always filming. The time I saw him might even be less than what Song Ting saw. It's just that he'd never brought a girl to meet me, nor had he revealed the slightest hint of such information. I guess not. But a guess is just a guess. I'm not sure. You should ask him. She shifted closer to me. You're really a Ting's sister. You're so unlike your brother. Zhou Yu. Zhou Tingyun stood not far in front of me, buttoning his shirt. Song Ting quickly stood up, getting to him before I did. So she's your sister? I never knew you had a sister. She's so quiet. Why haven't you left yet? Zhou Tingyun didn't pick up her thread. He took the bag from my hand, pulled out a bottle of water, and gestured for me to walk out with him. Hey, I wanted to have dinner with you. I'll leave after eating. Don't rush me. Zhou Tingyun frowned slightly very briefly. If I hadn't been staring at his face, I definitely wouldn't have noticed. Next time, you have work. Don't let it get delayed. No, I came specifically to see you today. She reached out to link arms with Zhou Tingyun. Suddenly, I felt a bit superfluous. I couldn't say why, but staying here felt very awkward. Seeing Zhou Tingyun deftly avoid her, I took the bag back from him and said softly and quickly, I'll wait for you in the car. I only started first grade when I was 7. By the time I reached 3rd grade, Zhou Tingyun had already graduated from high school and was about to start university. Holding his acceptance letter, I asked him if I could go to university with him, if I could study at his school. He pinched the nape of my neck. Haven't even learned to walk properly, and you want to fly? Finish primary school first, then secondary school, then high school. And only then can you attend the university I'm going to now. Can I skip secondary and high school? No. Why? Why so many whys? He tapped my workbook with his finger. Finish your summer homework first. I was a bit anxious. Zhou Tingyun always seemed many steps ahead. I wanted to catch up to him. I was afraid he'd walk on and leave me behind. In 4th grade, it was as if some mental block had been cleared. My thinking matured gradually, and I began to understand many common things. Like why the higher the grade, the smaller the number. Why we had to go to school and study. Why I was a year or two older than my classmates. The primary school I attended was famous for its math Olympiad training, competitions, top students and child prodigies. It even had advancement exams set up for each grade. Once I had the idea, I worked hard. That was when I first began to study seriously in my life. I knew why I wanted good grades. Coupled with my maturing mind, working hard became much easier. I successfully passed the advancement exam and jumped straight to 6th grade. But there were still 6 years until the university Zhou Tingyun attended. 6 years felt far too long for me. During the first 2 years of secondary school, Zhou Tingyun hadn't entered the industry yet, and even came to parent-teacher meetings for me. The first time he came, I waited for him at the school gate. That day, he wore an unusually neat white shirt and black trousers, with even a pair of glasses perched on his nose. I looked at him curiously. Why was he wearing glasses? He turned my head to face forward. Coded too much, nearsighted. I tried to turn my head to see what his glasses looked like, but he wouldn't let me. He was much taller than me, and could easily restrain me with one hand. But the next time I saw him, he was back in his usual loose t-shirt and sweatpants, and the glasses were gone. I searched everywhere but couldn't find them. When I asked, he said it was temporary nearsightedness. So sometimes Zhou Tingyun was a bit strange too. We finally had lunch around 3 o'clock, an awkward time, neither early nor late. Zhou Tingyun preferred light flavors, while I was an omnivore, able to eat sweet, sour, salty, and spicy. Lunch was ordered directly from the hotel. Stir-fried seasonal vegetables, poached prawns, carp soup, and a cold tossed tri-shred salad. Zhou Tingyun placed a bowl of soup next to my hand. What's wrong? I swallowed the food in my mouth. What? In a bad mood? You're not talking either. Zhou Tingyun set down his chopsticks as if he was finished. No. He leaned back against the chair, looking at me for a moment. Too hot. Rest at the hotel this afternoon. Don't go wait over there. I nodded silently. I knew what was wrong with me now. Zhou Tingyun was an extremely outstanding man in every aspect. I had always known that. I didn't like Song Ting, but there could be Jiang Ting, Li Ting, Wang Ting. All sorts of Tings. Meeting Zhou Tingyun and receiving his kindness was a once-in-a-lifetime stroke of luck for me. When Zhou Tingyun asked what was wrong, of course I couldn't say anything. Never mind that Song Ting had work connections with him, was the beloved daughter of his former boss. What right did I have to comment on Zhou Tingyun's social interactions? What standing did I have to dislike Song Ting's interactions with him? He never interfered with my social life or daily affairs, and I should do the same for him. Perhaps Zhou Tingyun had been right all along. I relied on him too heavily, clung to him too tightly, and in doing so, invisibly pressured him. One day he would have his own family, his own children. And what would I do then? I needed to get used to life without him as soon as possible. Rather than gradually distancing myself from Zhou Tingyun, it was more like quitting him. Over 10 years, he had been the only person in my life, leaving an indelible mark. I didn't know how to lessen my subconscious dependence on and longing for Zhou Tingyun, but staying away was what Zhou Tingyun wanted to see. The location for Zhou Tingyun's current filming was a coastal city, surrounded by several tourist spots. I booked a flight home for the weekend. For the remaining few days, I didn't go to the set but wandered around the area alone. The process was extremely difficult. When I felt the breeze on the beach, I wondered if Zhou Tingyun was hot. Watching the waves crash on the shore, I wondered if he was thirsty. On the bus back to the hotel, I wanted to get off immediately and turn towards him. I always wanted to turn around and go to his side. The more I resisted, the more I couldn't stop thinking about him. During dinner that evening, I finally saw Zhou Tingyun. These past few days, he left early and returned late. I knew his schedule, had even memorized it. Avoiding him was easy. He knocked on my door with several packed food containers. I put down the half-packed suitcase and opened the door to see him standing there. He was too tall. Even looking down at me, I couldn't clearly see the expression in his eyes. I could avoid him, but I couldn't refuse him. A small table and a carpet were in the middle of the living room. He put down what he was carrying, and we sat facing each other. Zhou Tingyun opened several containers, pushed them to the middle, then leaned back against the sofa, fingers unconsciously tapping lightly on the table surface. All my social media apps were filled with information about Zhou Tingyun, so I had seen videos specifically compiling close-ups of his hands. Long fingers, distinct knuckles, nails trimmed extremely neatly. Even without any rings or adornments, they were very beautiful. I looked away and pushed a box of rice towards him. Bowing my head, I started eating silently. Actually, I had many questions. I wanted to ask how filming had been these past 2 days, if he was tired, if he had time to go to the beach with me for a breeze and juice. But I kept putting food in my mouth, stopping the words overflowing in my throat. I could feel Zhou Tingyun's gaze resting on me. I put down my bowl and looked up at him. He looked back at me silently, expressionless. I couldn't guess his mood either. What's wrong? What's wrong with you? These past 2 days, did something happen? I tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear, staring at the dishes on the table. When he was serious like this, I didn't quite dare meet his eyes. Nothing. Zhou Tingyun, I've been here playing for 2 weeks now. I want to go home. The soft sound of chopsticks placed against a bowl. I didn't dare look up. Zhou, is it because I've been too busy lately, neglecting you? Or did someone on the set say something to you? You can tell me anything. He looked somewhat tired. I shook my head and smiled at him. None of that. I just want to go back. He tilted his head slightly, as if studying me. You're not yourself. The tip of one of his fingers rested on the edge of the table. If you really want to go back, I'll have Keeney take you tomorrow. Once I finish this busy period, I'll take you out somewhere for a few days. The summer in the north was completely different from the south. In the south, the wind carried moisture. In the north, it was dry heat. Walking outside felt more like being baked by high temperatures. Coming out of the library, the sky showed its final fiery red hues, but every breath taken was of scorching air. I found a shady alleyway to walk home slowly. When alone, going home wasn't an urgent matter. The old, shaded alleyway with its tucked-away houses actually brought a few hints of coolness. The distant ding-a-ling of a bicycle sounded, hollow and crisp. I looked down, counting the paving stones beneath my feet, when suddenly someone grabbed my arms from behind. I had no chance to struggle before losing consciousness. Waking up, my head was still heavy and foggy, as if I had slept for a long time. My dreams were filled with the surroundings of Zhou Tingyun's parents' old house from the early days. The thriving paulownia trees, the street food carts, the stray little black dog, and the boy in the oversized light-colored t-shirt who always walked ahead of me. ... I sat up. Pink silk sheets, a crystal chandelier, dragon and phoenix carvings adorned the cornices. The small balcony window wasn't fully closed, and the sheer curtain billowed in the breeze. To avoid constantly giving in to the urge to contact Zhou Tingyun or search for updates on him, these past few days I'd only taken my school bag and writing materials to the library. Only now did I regret it. I had no way to contact him. The door opened. Thick carpets covered the floor, muffling all sound. I met the gaze of the middle-aged man carrying a tray. He smiled. You're awake. I began to doubt if I was still dreaming. Otherwise, why did everything seem so matter-of-fact yet bizarrely abnormal? Mr. Lee will be back shortly. Please have something to eat and wait a little. I want to go home. That ... We'll have to wait for Mr. Lee's return to decide. My last memory was the evening glow in the small alley. Judging by the strong sunlight outside now, it was either midday or early morning. I sat on the outside balcony, zoning out, just wanting the Mr. Lee, the man mentioned, to return quickly so I could leave. Do you like the surroundings? From the balcony, all one could see were layers of forested hills, a few red-roofed houses faintly visible in the distance. A woman's voice sounded behind me. I turned to look. A very pretty face. Hair and makeup extremely refined. A women's suit nicely accentuating her slender figure. The only thing out of place was the pair of soft-soled slippers on her feet. I stood up. May I leave now? Leave? Where would you go? Home. She smiled, crossing her arms in front of her. Let me introduce myself. Li Wen, 39, unmarried, mother to one daughter. Named Zhou Yu. I nodded. May I leave now? This is your home. Where would you go? Find that male celebrity? Suddenly, I found it all rather absurd. Back when I first became aware of the concepts of mother and father, my surroundings were a group of toddlers like me and fierce staff. When I escaped from the orphanage, walking on bustling streets, starving, what I saw were other young, beautiful women picking up their own children and avoiding me. Finally, I met Zhou Tingyun. He was the one who taught me to speak, write, read, listen, live and study, who raised me till now. Every time I was locked in an airless room in the orphanage late at night, I hoped my parents would find me, take me away from that place. But they never did. After that, I never thought about it again. Perhaps some people are born with parents and family, while others have to try very, very hard just to meet one Zhou Tingyun. That having him was already more than enough. When Zhou Tingyun took me to enroll, he only then learned I had jumped straight to 6th grade. After leaving the school, he took me to an ice cream shop. Thinking back now, he was quite different in his youth compared to now. More expressive of his emotions, less patient than now, not as steady. And back then, I was still too young. He probably thought I wouldn't understand even if he talked to me. So he always seemed a bit lazily detached when dealing with me. He sat across from me, watching me scoop up a spoonful of creamy ice cream. Under his gaze, I didn't put it in my mouth but offered it to him first. He turned his head away. Why did you want to skip a grade? You're so small. Do you even know what skipping a grade means? His fingers tapped unconsciously on the tabletop. I nodded, swallowing the sweet cream in my mouth. I want to get to university quickly, to be with you. He looked at me, for the first time with a somewhat serious expression. Zhou Yu, I sent you to school and made you study not so you could follow me to university, but so you could grow up following a natural path like every normal child. I don't want you to be a child prodigy or a genius. I just want you to do things appropriate for your age. Don't put any pressure on yourself. Can you understand? Perhaps because I received so little growing up, had so few things that were truly mine, I came to value what I did have even more. The little yellow cat was one of those few things. It didn't even have a name, but it was my first companion. A cat's life is only about a dozen years. My little yellow cat, following me, never had enough to eat. Exposed to wind and sun, had an even shorter one. The little yellow cat only stayed in Zhou Tingyun's house for 4 years, exactly until the summer after I finished primary school. Its meows were always very soft, its breathing shallow. It preferred to curl up sleeping in my arms or lie at my feet while I did homework. One day I woke up and didn't see my little yellow cat on the bed. I searched the whole house before finding it lying next to the toilet cistern. It had stopped breathing. At the time, Zhou Tingyun seemed to try to console me, explaining about a cat's lifespan. But actually, I knew. Science textbooks had covered it. And from my earliest days in the orphanage, having food and blankets snatched away, I understood that nothing is eternal. I was grateful he never suggested buying me another kitten. Cats, like people, I had raised my little yellow cat. I wouldn't raise another. I didn't want to talk to her anymore, but I needed to go home. I'm going back. She maintained her crossed-arm stance, walking closer to me. Zhou Tingyun, I will express my gratitude to him appropriately, and you should return to your own home. I felt I couldn't communicate with the person opposite me. She had so as a matter of course to use this method to bring me here, inexplicably arranging things between me and Zhou Tingyun. What gave her the right? I stood up, sidestepped her, and walked towards the door. Zhou Yu. She called out from behind me, her voice unhurried. What is your relationship with Zhou Tingyun? A complete stranger. Yet you spend his money, live in his house, rely on him for clothing, food, shelter, transportation. Why? Have you ever thought about it? I know he's been decent to you, but why is he good to you? She walked up behind me. You're young, too naive. There are many things you don't understand, can't see clearly. However, he's raised you all these years. I won't let him suffer a loss. I glanced back at her. From this close distance, I could see not a single wrinkle around her eyes. She still wore that faint, confident smile. Everything she did, every word she said, every expression she made me uncomfortable. But I couldn't even be bothered to refute her, nor waste any expression on her. I pushed open the door and went downstairs a spiral staircase. I walked quickly, but I was still intercepted by the villa's security guards on the last step. It seems you're someone who responds to force, not persuasion. Li Wen stood by the second-floor railing, looking down at me from above. How long can you stay with him? Men are the most unreliable things in the world. Her voice echoed in the empty space. Besides, he's currently all wrapped up with someone else. You're just extra. Come back. I finally found you. I'll make it up to you properly. Li Wen kept portraying the relationship between me and Zhou Tingyun as something dirty. Actually, I wasn't terribly interested in other people's opinions about me. What did it have to do with me? I didn't care about others' thoughts. But I didn't want to hear her disparage Zhou Tingyun again and again. She wasn't worthy. Shut up. It was the first time I looked her directly in the eye. After that day, Li Wen confined me to this house. Opening the bedroom door revealed a tall, burly security guard. I hadn't imagined that my recent thoughts about distancing myself from Zhou Tingyun would be realized so quickly. And in this way, this was the 5th day. Staring out the window every day didn't make my head explode, but it left my limbs stiff, my back and waist sore and weak. It was also the first time I realized I could go 5 days without uttering a single word. Li Wen even brought in a psychologist for me and hooked me up to an 4 drip. The psychologist spoke opposite me, mouth opening and closing, wearing a mask-like smile that made me extremely uncomfortable. This discomfort manifested physically. Nausea suddenly churned in my stomach. I pulled out the 4 needle and ran to the bathroom. But it was just dry heaving. Having eaten little these past few days, there was nothing to bring up. I splashed cold water on my face, confirming I was still alive in this world. I couldn't bear to be apart from Zhou Tingyun. I wanted to crouch down and gather some strength, but was caught halfway by a hand. The clean, faint scent enveloped me from behind first. I knew who it was. These past few days I had even dreamed less. It seemed I had thought about many things, yet also seemed to have thought of nothing. Turning around to see that familiar face, for the first time I felt I was in a dream. Opening my mouth, having not spoken for so long, any sound came out hoarse and raspy. When he pulled me close, my eyes unconsciously grew hot, and now tears were dripping from my chin onto my neck. Zhou Tingyun. He cradled the back of my head against his chest, rubbed the nape of my neck, patted my back. It's all right, Xiaoyu. I looked up at him and noticed faint stubble on his chin. It was the first time I'd seen it. He was always meticulously clean-shaven before. He used his fingers to wipe the moisture from my face and smiled at me. Tired? Then he wrapped his arms around my waist and picked me up. I took advantage of the situation, wrapped my arms around his neck, pressed my forehead against his warm skin, burying my face there. Zhou Tingyun, I want to sleep. He held me tighter, speaking softly near my ear. Sleep. When you wake up, we'll be home. Waking up, the sky was dim, the whole room shrouded in a deep blue haze. I thought I was still in that room at Li Wen's villa, and slid under the covers to close my eyes again. Awake? Zhou Tingyun's voice was right by my ear. A hand covered my eyes, and when it moved away, the warm glow of a small bedside lamp filled the room. I turned my head to look at him. He was sitting in a single armchair by the bed. His hair was still blue, his chin smooth as ever. He smelled fresh and clean. Don't recognize me? Staring like that. Seeing him made me happy. Half my face buried in the duvet, I couldn't help but smile. More sleep? Get up and eat something. I sat up and saw the tiny puncture mark on the back of my hand from the 4 needle. Several consecutive days of IVs had left the back of my hand slightly swollen. The surrounding speckles of dried blood had been wiped away. Now a small cotton pad was secured over it with medical tape. Zhou Tingyun. I reached out and hugged the arm closest to me. I don't want to be with Li Wen. I just want to be with you. Who said you'd be with her? She's not worthy. Get up and eat, not ever. I know. You have nothing to do with her. You've lost so much weight. He gently pinched my wrist. Just skin and bones now. Get up and eat. Zhou Tingyun stayed at home for a full week, this time something unheard of since he entered the industry. It was like going back to my primary school summer holidays. Only the little yellow cat was missing. We didn't go out these days either. During the day we read, studied scripts, played games, slept. In the evening we went to the supermarket downstairs for groceries and fruit. Zhou Tingyun was truly intent on fattening me up. Many new dishes appeared on the table. He even attempted some complex, time-consuming ones. After meals, he'd take me upstairs to exercise. 2 treadmills. His speed was much faster than mine, but after the same amount of time, my waist was sore and legs weak, while his breathing hadn't even quickened. The only odd thing was that he would take phone calls in the study, away from me. Even when discussing work before, he hadn't avoided me. I could probably guess what it was about. The total time I spent with Li Wen didn't exceed 2 hours, but I deeply experienced her domineering and controlling nature. She was definitely not someone who would give up easily. But in my eyes, she seemed utterly laughable. I wasn't a puppet or her chess piece. I was an independent person with thoughts. She was a capitalist. So was Zhou Tingyun. Zhou Tingyun was the flagship of his current entertainment company, but also a behind-the-scenes controlling shareholder. The CEO on paper was his university classmate. I didn't know the extra details, but I knew he was very wealthy. His company was doing extremely well, and I'd even seen mobile games bearing the name of the parent company. Zhou Tingyun always had the ability to inspire reassurance without seeming to try. I looked at the textbooks for my minor courses next to me. I'd always wanted to grow up quickly, ever since I was little. Back then, it was fear that Zhou Tingyun would abandon me. Now, it was wanting to become a more capable person, just as Zhou Tingyun had said, so he could retire earlier. He was only 7 years older than me, yet he had always been the one sheltering me. After a week's rest at home, Zhou Tingyun had to return to the film set. Only this time he proactively booked my ticket too. The plane merged into the clouds around 2 in the afternoon. Golden sunlight streamed through the window, falling on Zhou Tingyun. His hair had been bleached before the blue dye was applied, and the blue was quite deep. Sitting beside him, with the sunlight shining through, his hair was filled with incoming golden rays. Zhou Tingyun. I nudged his arm. He was looking down at documents on his tablet, and made an acknowledging sound. I want to dye my hair too. Go ahead. Do all the colors of the rainbow. He glanced at the top of my head, a slight smile actually touching the corner of his mouth. I found it a bit funny too. I want to dye it blonde. It's your decision. I was long accustomed to his responses. Since childhood, whenever faced with choices, Zhou Tingyun always left the decision to me. He gave me the greatest freedom, wanting to raise me to be an independent person. Yet it seemed he hadn't been entirely successful. I always found myself making choices because of him, unconsciously. The filming schedule was so packed that I couldn't even fathom how Zhou Tingyun had managed to secure that entire week off from the director. After returning to the set, it indeed proved to be the case. Zhou Tingyun was busier than ever before. Out of 24 hours a day, he spent 20 of them catching up on shooting scenes. When the early scenes were mostly finished, Zhou Tingyun changed his look and dyed his hair back to black. There were all sorts of people on set, with hair dyed various colors. My blonde hair wasn't particularly noticeable among them. I sat beside Zhou Tingyun watching the makeup artist apply solution to his hair. He was too tired and drowsy, leaning back on the leather chair. He seemed to have fallen asleep in that short time. The makeup artist was skilled and gentle in their movements. I opened my phone. The screen showed a photo of Zhou Tingyun and me taken the day I dyed my hair. The summer morning sunlight was glaring. My hair was cut straight, ear-length, and I leaned against Zhou Tingyun. For the first time, I thought blue and blonde looked so good together. He truly was a born star. Even the sunlight seemed like his personal lighting technician, illuminating his features with an otherworldly, almost unreal kind of beauty. After nearly 2 months of filming, there had been plenty of scenes under the sun. Yet he hadn't tanned much. Zhou Tingyun had very standard cool-toned fair skin. During his 2-week university military training, he came back with his nose bridge, face, and the back of his neck sunburned red and peeling. He hadn't entered the industry back then, and I had no awareness of sun protection or skincare either. So Zhou Tingyun endured over 10 days under the scorching sun with nothing on his face. When he returned, it was as if someone's blush had been smeared on him. I suggested he go to the hospital for some medicine. He tore off a piece of aloe vera I was growing on the balcony and rubbed it on his face once or twice. After the sunburned skin peeled off, he recovered in a few days, his skin even finer. But during my high school and university military training periods, I received a box of assorted sun protection products he had sent home in advance. So he did know sunburn hurt. The makeup artist glanced at me, indicating I should wake Zhou Tingyun up. It was time to rinse his hair. 20-some minutes Zhou Tingyun's rest time. This time, it was also because of me that his time was delayed. I nudged his arm. He opened his eyes, momentarily blurred before becoming alert. His eyelashes were long and straight, the tips seemingly holding tiny drops of physiological tears from tired eyes. Seeing me, he wanted to speak but first yawned. I followed and yawned too. Then he smiled, stood up and reached out to smooth my short hair. Go back and sleep. I wanted to respond but couldn't help yawning again. I caught it from you. I'm not sleepy. That can be contagious too. My voice from the previous sentence had been low and hoarse, unpleasant to hear, so I didn't open my mouth this time. I followed him into the inner room, watching him recline on the shampoo chair. Water flowed slowly over his roots. I rested my head on my arms, quietly watching him. He hooked a finger around my hand resting on the leather bed. Why so quiet? So listless? I didn't know why, but when Zhou Tingyun spoke so gently beside me, my eyes grew hot. I also didn't know why I increasingly didn't want to initiate conversation with others. Even Zhou Tingyun. Sitting beside him felt peaceful and calm, yet I rarely had the desire to speak first. What to say? Why talk? Communication often felt rather invalid. Over the next couple of days, think about where you want to go, what you want to see. The sea, mountains, rivers, ice, ancient architecture. We'll go in a few days, okay? I nodded. Zhou Tingyun worked intensely and managed to wrap up his short-term commitments 10 days before my semester started. That night's flight took us to a small island. White sand, seagulls and blue sky complemented each other. Sparsely populated, Zhou Tingyun didn't need to wear masks or sunglasses when moving around the island at all. He wore a loose black t-shirt, grey sweatpants and slippers. Sitting on a reef by the sea watching me put on snorkeling gear. Due to his acting roles, Zhou Tingyun had obtained many professional skill certificates and was also my coach for amateur activities. Zhou Tingyun beckoned me over. My short hair was tucked behind my ears under the mask strap. He gently pulled it out and producing a hair tie from somewhere, tied it up. Want me to come with you? He checked my equipment once more. I shook my head. I can do it myself. He patted the back of my head. Go on. Swimming through the pale blue sea water, surrounded by the denser medium of water, the sea slightly cool, I felt the intangible, invisible weight that had been pressing on my mind dissipate. The flow of time seemed to slow. I drifted slowly towards the depths. When Zhou Tingyun pulled me onto the speedboat, a red sun hung on the horizon. He handed me a thick, large towel and hot tea. We sat on the side of the boat watching the distant sun sink. The sunlight was brilliant yet gentle, gilding Zhou Tingyun's defined features with vivid hues, making him appear blurred yet even more beautiful. Sensing my gaze, he glanced at me, his pale lips curving slightly. Lately, compared to before, he seemed much more patient and gentle. He was still atop the mountain, but he had bent down. A ball seemed to bounce chaotically into my mind. I suddenly grew curious about the texture of Zhou Tingyun's lips. His Adam's apple moved slightly, outlined by the fading sunlight. I reached out and touched it. He lowered his eyelashes to look at me but didn't move. The faint salty scent of the sea drifted into my nostrils. Zhou Tingyun's black hair was ruffled by the wind. My fingers traced the line of his throat, but I wanted to go further to his jawline, the corner of his mouth. Zhou Tingyun, can I kiss you? This question popping into my mind made my heart beat faster. Zhou Tingyun was an older brother, a friend, a teacher, the vessel for my familial and friendly affection. But now I found myself growing greedy. I actually wanted him to give me love. I quickly withdrew my hand and turned to look at the shimmering waves. Thinking back carefully, my dependence on Zhou Tingyun since childhood was real. But it was the kind of dependence, like clinging to a lifeline. The abnormal discomfort, even overly sensitive. I felt when I saw Song Ting last time, I should have guessed. I don't read novels or romantic literature, have few close friends, and usually only watch Zhou Tingyun's TV shows and movies. That's why I only realized it now. I liked Zhou Tingyun. A woman's liking for a man. Zhou Tingyun was good-looking. As a teenager, his attitude towards others was one of indifference and aloofness, which actually attracted girls his age. Everyone wanted to conquer him, to gain his special attention. When he picked me up from school, occasionally girls would follow us. The bolder ones would even come over to pat my head or cheeks, handing me snacks or milk tea. But he never engaged much with them. The warnings Zhou Tingyun gave me as a guardian were few. Don't accept things from strangers was one, so I never took their offerings either. This actually hurt the feelings of those budding young girls a bit. But I didn't understand back then. Only now do I wonder if Zhou Tingyun perhaps lacked that particular string. He also acted in romance films rarely, but there were always one or two. The characters within the films and the audience outside all tried to instill in me the idea that he and the female lead loved deeply. But he had no romantic experience. I only saw his acting skills, not true feelings and emotions. Was I too indifferent? Or was Zhou Tingyun too indifferent? The tables had turned. Now I had become one of those who wanted to gain his special attention. But the first problem I encountered was, can I like him? Daydreaming again? Zhou Tingyun handed me a plate of skewers. We were floating on the sea. The boat had built-in barbecue equipment. Lights shone around the hull. Zhou Tingyun stood by the grill, sprinkling seasoning on chicken wings with a somewhat casual, slack expression. Being with him for long, falling in love with him was too easy. He lifted his eyelashes to glance at me. I looked at him. Zhou Tingyun, will you cook for other people in the future too? I had finally found the root of my constant sense of insecurity. Oil from the chicken wings dripped onto the smokeless charcoal stones, made a sizzling sounds and puffing up white smoke. Zhou Tingyun turned his head slightly to avoid it. Cook for whom? Your girlfriend. Or someone you like. Through the thin smoke and hazy night, his gaze fell on me, seeming to carry scrutiny. You stood there for so long just now, thinking about this question the whole time. He plated the skewers, used tongs to remove the hot stones, and wiped his fingers with a wet wipe. Before, I thought your recent low mood, your unusual state, was because of Li Wen. I wanted to speak, but he didn't stop. Last time at the set, it was the same. You suddenly became interested in my emotional life and future marriage, and you've been unhappy since. Zhou, have you ever thought about why? I have thought about it. I responded silently in my heart. You're 21 now. You understand everything. You're no longer a child. Zhou, what's in your heart? Can you tell me? He stood opposite me. Moonlight shone in his pupils, giving them a gorgeous pearl-like sheen. His gaze on me seemed to carry weight. Zhou Tingyun, can I say it? My brain capacity felt insufficient, always turning to mush at crucial moments. I didn't know if I had misunderstood his meaning, but I knew that once I said it, he and I would never interact the same way again. This was a gamble, but before gambling I wanted to ask him for a chip. The wind lifted his short hair and mine too. It tickled my face. I wanted to reach up and smooth it, but he moved beside me first and tied it back for me. You can, as long as you say it. The force with which he tied hair was always light, always loosening quickly afterwards. My chest was pounding. I looked into his beautiful eyes. Because of jealousy, Zhou Tingyun. Because I was jealous. The thought of someone else being by your side in the future, sharing your long years, your happiness and sadness, you being good to them, delicate, gentle and patient with them, you two being together for a long, long time, it makes me feel terrible. Dissecting one's own dark heart is actually difficult, but once I started, I felt it didn't matter. Let Zhou Tingyun see the ugly me. Let him give up on me, avoid me, I accept it. My nose felt sour, but I still met his gaze. Zhou Tingyun, I don't want you to date or marry someone else. Not because I'd have nowhere to go, but because the idea of you loving someone else is itself very hard for me to accept. I know I'm bad, greedy. You've been so good to me. Without you, I might have died in some wilderness long ago. You've sacrificed a lot for me too. I should be content. But I want to be the one who walks through life with you. Zhou Tingyun, I like you. I actually managed to smile. Am I being very immature and unreasonable? Are you very disappointed in me? I tried. When Li Wen locked me in that room, I even thought about letting her keep me locked up forever. I didn't actively resist. Physical separation kept me from seeing you. But I thought about you every day. In this world, there isn't really anything I particularly like or care about. I can give up anything, let go of anything. The only thing I can't bear to part with is you. I looked at him. He kept his eyes on me too. In the end, I was the one who looked away. Zhou Tingyun's pupils were like unfathomably deep seas. I lowered my eyes, bowed my head. Zhou Tingyun, I don't mean to pressure you in any way. I just wanted to say what's in my heart. Legally speaking, parents fulfilling their duty by raising a child to adulthood is enough. You and I are not related. You've invested so much in me. I am very, very grateful and want to repay you as best I can. I just didn't want to keep it from you. Didn't want you to not know what the person staying by your side every day is thinking inside. The wind by the sea was strong. After saying all this, my whole body felt hot, yet I shivered. I felt Zhou Tingyun move. He draped the thick towel I had set aside earlier over me, pulling the collar together. Look up. The moment I raised my head, I saw the moon reflected in Zhou Tingyun's eyes. Zhou Yu, that name not good. After all, he used his fingers to wipe the moisture from my face, crying over the smallest thing. Raising a child is really hard. After all these years, you're still not much different from when you were little. When have I ever shown the slightest intention of abandoning you? Have I always failed to give you a sense of belonging and security? He held my chin between two fingers, giving it a slight shake. His gaze lowered, looking at me carefully. Good in every way, just sensitive and inferior. Zhou Yu, do you know why? During your first 2 years of university, I kept working outside and didn't come home. Because I raised you as a child, then suddenly realized I had impure thoughts towards you. Felt I wasn't being human, didn't want to affect you, so I wanted to stay away. Looking at it this way, I really wasn't suited to be a guardian. Didn't raise you to be a confident and optimistic person. Didn't make you happy and joyful. Instead, I got myself involved too. But I will take responsibility for you, Zhou Yu. I will take responsibility for you for a lifetime. If I hadn't misunderstood, this was the first time Zhou Tingyun had said something so close to love words. Immense surprise crashed over me. My heart felt like it would leap out of my chest. Zhou Tingyun, the moon in the sky, the clouds atop the mountains, could really be moved, could really like someone. Zhou Tingyun, you mean, you like me too? But, what do you like about me? He led me to sit on the side of the boat. The barbecue had cooled. He poured me a cup of hot tea. There's nothing not to like. The boat sat low in the water. I took off my slippers and dipped my feet in, stirring the rippling light waves on the sea's surface. Utter silence, as if the whole world contained only Zhou Tingyun and me. I rested my face against his shoulder, feeling him rest his chin on the top of my head. Zhou Yu, what do you like about me? I am very clear about what I am thinking. And you? Sometimes I say you've grown up, but in my eyes, you're still a child. You need to distinguish clearly. Dependence, missing come in many forms. I'm asking you now, you still have room. If you regret it later, I might not let go easily. His voice naturally carried a cold feeling. Soaked by the wind now, it sounded lower and cooler. Yet by my ear, it held an icy sexiness. Zhou Tingyun could actually have such doubt and anxiety too. I lifted my head to look at him and did what I had wanted to do for a long time. Holding onto his shoulders, I straightened up and kissed his beautiful eyes. His nose bridge, his chin, finally landing a light peck at the corner of his mouth. He let me have my way, neither avoid nor cater to, displaying a compliance that seemed extremely inconsistent with his usual temperament. Zhou Tingyun, you have to believe me. I'm smart. I can distinguish everything clearly. I wrapped my arms around his neck, pressing my forehead against the skin of his neck, feeling the flow of blood in the vessels beneath. I will also take responsibility for you for a lifetime. One hand lightly supported my back. His voice finally carried a hint of smile. Okay. Leaning against him, my heart felt unprecedented ease. Zhou Tingyun carried a familiar, pleasant scent. I grew drowsy, but he propped up my shoulders, turning me to face him. He reached out to tidy my messy hair. Zhou Yu, I have one request for you. What? You're still so young. Why do you always give me a sense of age, passive, like you might vanish at any moment? What you said earlier, that there's nothing in this world you can't bear to part with, that sentence scared me. I said before, no matter what, you can talk to me. That will always hold true. You not only like me, you also have to try to learn to like yourself, to like this world, okay? I will always be with you, Zhou Yu. Don't make me worry. He gently pinched both my cheeks. Smile. Be happier. Do what you want to do. I'm here. That incident with Li Wen. Did it frighten you? I shook my head. I didn't feel much. What are your thoughts about her? The night grew deeper, the moon higher. I leaned against Zhou Tingyun. He wrapped me in a very thick blanket. I wasn't cold at all. I don't have many thoughts. She's just a stranger. But I don't want to see her again. Okay. After returning from the island, my final year of university began. This time, Zhou Tingyun didn't rush off to another filming location. For these 2 months he wasn't even very busy, having turned down some engagements. He only had some post-production dubbing work for a film. But contrary to him, I became busy. Internship, graduation project, research assignments, and exams for my double degree made me wish I could split myself in two. I moved out of the dormitory and lived at home. After 4 years of university, I still hadn't met Zhou Tingyun's expectation of forming deep friendships with classmates. Most were nodding acquaintances or ordinary friends. But what Zhou Tingyun said, I had to listen to. The seniors in my research group, the senior leaders at my internship company. I tried to interact and communicate more with them. The mentor at my internship company was a sister a few years older than me, with a good personality, often bringing me snacks. I told Zhou Tingyun I wanted to invite her to a meal after the internship ended. But that day, it wasn't just her who came to the appointment. Her cousin Song Ting was there too. I then understood the meaning behind her message about preferring a quiet restaurant. It was to avoid inconvenience for the big star. At the table, I had ordered in advance many dishes my mentor had mentioned, but I had completely lost my appetite. Their main goal was to have me, Zhou Tingyun's little sister, act as a so-called wingman, to matchmake Song Ting and Zhou Tingyun, turning their fake play into true love, becoming a genuine on-screen couple. When Zhou Tingyun occasionally picked me up from the company, he always parked in a corner of the underground garage. I could guarantee no one at the company had seen him. She wanted to pursue Zhou Tingyun, but extended her reach into my work and personal life. Stirring the carp soup in my bowl, I asked the server to help me pack a portion to go. Only after the two opposite me finished speaking did I speak. I have no control over Zhou Tingyun's affairs. I have other matters to attend to. I'll be leaving first. Zhou Tingyun was still at the peak of his popularity. Even if my relationship with him had somewhat changed, I still didn't want to cause trouble for him. If news of Zhou Tingyun dating leaked from me, never mind how Song Ting would react or investigate. His cooperating companies and film and television projects and his fans would also experience significant upheaval. I didn't care much about these external things. What's shown to outsiders can be false. What the real situation is, one knows for oneself. That evening I lay on the living room sofa revising my thesis. Zhou Tingyun was beside me, drinking soup and wearing headphones for a meeting. My neck felt sore, so I moved closer to Zhou Tingyun, leaning on him for support. I probably had some sort of the so-called skin hunger towards Zhou Tingyun. When with him, I always wanted to be close, touching. Especially after confirming our feelings, I had even fewer reservations. He picked up a piece of fish and fed it to me. I habitually clicked to delete an advertising page that popped up on my computer. But within it, I saw a familiar photo. Li Wen. Li Wen was in the news, linked to tax evasion and her company's name, facing massive fines. I wondered if selling that mountaintop villa would be enough to cover it. But what did it have to do with me? I clicked delete. Although unconcerned, Zhou Tingyun had explained to me the reason she abandoned me back then absurd and overly simple. A daughter of a wealthy family, was obsessed by the sweet talk of a poor boy, foolishly ended up with me. They were too young then. No one had the idea of taking responsibility. No one was serious. Their underground relationship collapsed due to my arrival. Ending a wrong relationship meant discarding everything related to that person, including life. The poor boy ran away. The rich daughter of a wealthy family ran away too, leaving me behind. But the precious daughter was spoiled and pampered. After that, she had difficulty conceiving again. Marriage and divorce followed. She trusted no one. Yet she wanted to cultivate a complete confidant to guard her wealth in her old age. And so she thought of me. The first time Zhou Tingyun finished telling me this, I didn't even know what expression to make. My arrival itself was a mistake. An accident, unwanted, abandoned at birth. But fortunately, I had long stopped holding any expectation for so-called parents. Zhou Tingyun, such a cold-hearted person, yet he made up for it for me, family affection, friendship, and even the beautiful love to accompany me for life. The night before my graduation thesis defense, I belatedly felt a bit nervous. I wanted to go through it one more time with Zhou Tingyun. He was wearing light grey loungewear, sitting next to me reading company project proposals. Zhou Tingyun seemed to be gradually reducing his on-screen appearances, shifting more into the role of company owner, nurturing newcomers, pushing projects, making investments. I told him I wanted to practice once more. He looked at me, set down the tablet in his hand, and also took the laptop from me, closing it and placing both on the bedside table. He wrapped an arm around me, pulling me close, drew up the duvet, switched off the main light, leaving only the small bedside lamp on. What's making you nervous? Even an outsider like me could understand your presentation and wanted to invest. No more practicing. Sleep. Then he leaned down and kissed my eyes. I was still looking at him, so he smiled, his lips moving lower. I grabbed the fabric of his shirt at his waist. The defense the next day went exceptionally smoothly, even more so than any mental rehearsal. After finishing and leaving the lecture hall, my 3 roommates in their graduation gowns, all smiles, handed me bouquets and gift boxes. Besides Zhou Tingyun, the people closest to me whom I trusted were pretty much just them. I hugged them back. Zhou Tingyun had booked a restaurant for the evening, saying he wanted to treat them to dinner. I had only shared the matter of Zhou Tingyun with them, because one of them had an extremely sensitive gossip radar and had managed to extract the information during a dormitory dinner party last Christmas. They were all local tyrant from wealthy families, having seen celebrities and rich people aplenty. I thought meeting Zhou Tingyun would be quite normal for them. But when Zhou Tingyun entered the private room that evening and took off his mask, led by our dormitory monitor, they still let out small exclamations, then quickly covered their mouths, calmly pulling out a thick stack of various postcards from their bags for Zhou Tingyun to sign. My close friends, cousins, younger cousins, older cousins, aunt, senior, even my mum are all your fans. Oh, and me too. The dormitory monitor counted off happily on her fingers. Zhou Tingyun's lips curved faintly. He took the stack of postcards and signed them quickly. I rested my chin on my hand, watching them, feeling so happy. Afterwards, Zhou Tingyun said he'd take me for a drive. He drove a bright blue sports car, a type of flashy car model he almost never drove before. The car headed out of the city towards a mountain road. The summer night wind only carried a hint of coolness under the shade of a tree. I didn't ask anything, because as long as I was with Zhou Tingyun, I never cared where we were going. I leaned against the car window, feeling the wind. Zhou Yu. I turned to look at him. The lights on the mountain road was dim, moonlight and car lights merging. Zhou Tingyun's face was somewhat vague, yet his features appeared even more with distinct edges and corners. He had a meeting in the afternoon and wore a somewhat formal shirt. Now he had undone the top button, revealing a hint of his throat and neckline. The lines moved slightly as he spoke. Zhou Tingyun turned his face towards me. Get married? This question required no thought. Yes, let's. He smiled. Good. In the distance, the mountaintop had bits of light. The vehicle carried us racing towards the peak. Zhou Tingyun's extra chapter, anything is possible. Something like both parents dying in a car accident could happen to me, bringing with it an immense sense of unreality. The heavy sorrow was like a blunt knife, slowly cutting, one slice at a time, until the bone is visible. In the courtroom, Previously amiable uncles and their families revealed such ugly appearance, making everything feel even more illusory and absurd. Indeed, in this world one can only truly rely on oneself. Living alone actually felt somewhat easier. The 24 hours of day and night felt so long. The house, which never seemed large before, now everywhere carried the smell of corruption of dust. I declined all relatives and friends who wanted to visit, whether out of kindness or curiosity. It was meaningless. I didn't need compassion either. Zhou was an accident, as if she had suddenly appeared on the streets and alleys. I didn't even want to take care of myself, let alone raise her. I initially thought she would be a passing traveler, like a tiny speck of dust in my aimless life. But in the end, I kept her. When she huddled in a cement wall corner with her equally skeletal cat, trying to resist the wind and rain, I belatedly felt a twinge of cannot bear to see it. Someone so small, still trying to be responsible for an even smaller life. I also felt I should change my own state. It had been a long time since I'd experienced emotions like happiness. But after helping her settle her and successfully enrolling her in school, I felt a long-lost sense of satisfaction. So that evening, I made 2 extra dishes. She was still the same, no matter what I cooked, salty or bland, spicy or sour. She ate incredibly fast, head bowed, occasionally glancing up at me. Her eyes were surprisingly large, black and white, clearly defined. Eyelashes always seeming to hold a bit of moisture. I'd never raised a child before. The only younger siblings were 1 or 2 cousins. I lacked experience. But Zhou was obedient. She didn't cry or make a fuss, learned quickly, and if given something to do, she could stay quiet for an entire afternoon. It also made me feel a bit sorrowful. Some children are born without the qualification to be capricious. Having a child did create a tether. At the very least, I started thinking about making a proper effort myself, rather than being give oneself up as hopeless or living muddling along. Zhou's first set of final exam results, both Chinese and maths, were 100. She herself didn't seem to have much concept of it. As usual, she sat opposite me, curled on the carpet, chin resting on the back of her hands, quietly watching me. She really liked leaning in a corner somewhere, quiet and peaceful, but always within my line of sight. Children who do well in exams should get a reward. Zhou didn't play with toys, didn't have favorite food, didn't eat snacks. I suddenly remembered the girls of the same age in all sorts of floral dresses we passed on the way home from picking her up. I not only wanted to raise her to be healthy, but also to be beautiful. That was every girl's basic right. But she remained indifferent. Her temperament was nothing like at all her age should be, having little interest in everything. Indifferent, quiet, calm and steady to an excessive degree. I often had dreams at night. Dreams of my parents' scene of the car accident. Their emotion had always been good. My mother was gentle, my father optimistic. But 2 weeks before the accident, they abruptly began quarrel they had never had before. They both seemed to become barrel that ignited at a touch. I thought it was just a brief period of irritated for both. But later, thinking back, it seemed in the unseen forces of fate, this was the bugle call of end of life. When the torrential flow of fate surges forward, how could one prevent it? A fluffy, slightly ticklish sensation came from my palm and neck, pulling me away from the bloody scene. Zhou stood by my bed. Even the smallest size pajamas seemed too big for her. The shoulders drooped a bit, the sleeves hung long, covering her elbows. The arms below were thin and pale. 2 a.m. Her large eyes were clear and bright, brighter than the moon outside the window. The dream of blood and pitch black, interrupted by her, did not revisit for the rest of the night. Companionship truly is a wonderful thing. That skinny little yellow cat did not like her, gradually grow up over time, but instead aged and decayed. It was what she used to hold even in her sleep. When I found her in the bathroom, she was still quiet. Only droplets of water fell from her eyes, plop plop, colliding with the tiled floor. Her eyes were large but always quiet. Rarely did emotional transmission out from them. It was the first time I saw her shed tears. But it wasn't like other children's tears, or coerced tears seeking something from parents or elders. Even her crying was quiet. Her face didn't show much expression. I always felt she had a world of one's own inner thoughts, with its doors and windows closed tightly, inaccessible to anyone. She was depression for a long time. Compared to before, the difference isn't that big. Eating, studying, sleeping, regular and ordinary. But she spoke even less. A child in her teens, uttering fewer than 10 words a day. When she had nothing to do, she'd bow her head and stare at her palm in a daze. That spot where the kitten had loved to curl up in her arms was now empty. I never imagined I'd have a day when I'd attend a parent-teacher meeting for someone. But seeing the little boys trying to pay court to me, I found it amusing. I had been through that age myself. I knew exactly what they were thinking. I turned to look for Zhou Yu and found her outside the classroom in the corridor. She stood slightly sideways, expressionless, even hollow. Around her were laughing, frolicking and bustling students of the same age. She was among the crowd, yet detached from the outside world. Beyond the window, a sudden downpour had just ceased. Between dense dark clouds, dazzling sunlight broke through. She was staring at that spot in a daze. A boy her age tapped her shoulder. She snapped back to attention, listening carefully. The boy was handsome, even lively, which made Zhou Yu's calmness stand out even more. She shook her head gently, her mouth not even opening. I disliked others restricting me, so I wouldn't restrict others either. I even thought that if a school-age love could give Zhou Yu a bit of the atmosphere of life, the breath of the human world, I would support it. But judging by her performance, she seemed to lack the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Afterwards, we left school together. Carrying her backpack, she walked beside me. The road surface was damp, yet radiating the unique heat of summer. In the distance, a rainbow actually appeared. I pointed it out to her. She smiled. We just learned in physics class why rainbows appear. Water gathers into clouds. Clouds turn into rain. And after rain comes the rainbow. The rainbow connects clouds and rain. I like rainbows. The cloud is you. The rain is me. The little yellow cat is the rainbow. She was too intelligent. Though she started learning to speak, read and write late, she progressed quickly. Her grades never needed my worry. But I just wanted her to be like a normal child. After entering the industry, I was incredibly busy, but I still didn't neglect her. I sent many gifts to the grandma next door, hoping she could look out for Zhou Yu when I wasn't home. But for all these years, Zhou Yu never knew who lived across the hall. When I had time, I took her out into crowded street-side shops. Magnificent scenery, a concert with a crowd, bonfire party of minority ethnic groups. The serene smile on her face began to increase and she talked more too. Companionship and waiting were the good medicine for healing Zhou Yu. After graduating high school, Zhou Yu was somewhat more outgoing than before, but always quiet. Listening to her speak under the stars, densely scattered across the sky in a foreign land, I looked down and met her eyes, brighter than the stars. Her gaze was fixed on me. I had always known her eyes were too beautiful, but when they held gentle emotions, they could actually make one's heart resonate in resonance. The glass house carried an unknown fragrance. Zhou Yu rested her chin on the arm of my chair, asking me sideways if she could live at home during university. My heartbeat quickens for no reason, a throb I had never experienced before. When had Zhou Yu grown so big? Her hair was gently coiled above the ear. It looks refined and delicate. When she smiled with pursed lips, small dimple appeared on her cheeks. I didn't look at her anymore, saying what I had intended to say. I always wanted her to blend into the crowd, to have things to tether her, not to be all alone. After that, I intentionally avoided her. Having raised Zhou Yu from 7 or 8 years old to now, what was between us could no longer be simply summarized with terms like relatives and friends. She was too simple. I didn't want to alter her life path, influence her life, for my own selfish desire. She trusted and relied on me unconditionally. I couldn't bind her with something illusory and insubstantial like the so-called love. Her dependency on me was too heavy. She couldn't distinguish the source of friendship. I didn't want her to regret. At her age, she should have a gentle love for the suitable boy. There was a beast in my heart. I kept it in an iron cage. But this cowardly act also made me regret deeply later. Indulging my own selfish desires that cannot be exposed to the light, I found many excuses not to go home. But she was innocent. She even came to find me herself. Thin and small, squatting outside the door, looking up at me, making my heart flutters yet aches. On one hand, I couldn't let her go. On the other, There was the surging caged beast. But when the aunt neighbor sent me a message saying she hadn't returned home for 3 days, I finally felt complete panic. No matter what, I could not bear to lose her. So, I gave in. I wanted to stay by her side always, in whatever identity.